Alright, so hi guys! It's time for another Rambles video, because this has nothing to do with art exactly, but it was a comment that I had gotten on a more recent video, and I'm doing this audio in advance, so I don't know exactly when it's going up. I say recent, it might have been done last month, but it actually got quite a few likes, and people were talking about how they would really like me to do a topic on respect and elders and this like weird notion we have mostly in the US. I know that other countries do it too, but I'm a US citizen. I've only been a US citizen, so I can only go from what I've seen and what I know. I have also done quite a few videos about like jerkbag parents in the past, which I'll have at the end card of this video if you guys haven't seen them, or if you're new here. Hi, my name is Michie, or TwistedDisaster. I tend to make opinion videos, topic videos, commentary videos, art topic videos, all with my art in the background, because I am an artist. I love art. I love creatives, and I make new videos every Wednesday. I will not be saying that in every video, but I need to start saying it every now and then, because quite a few people have told me that they are not getting my videos in their sub box. So if you like this, hey, check back next Wednesday, see what I got. But let's talk about respect. I say as I did a very, very shameless self-promo there. Now, respect is something that's a very odd topic to bring up. Why is that? Well, with what little psychology I know from the psychology classes I took, there's a whole different aspect to respect, but the core principle of respect is it needs to be something that is earned. People need to earn your respect, and you need to earn others' respects. But as a culture, we are also ingrained in this notion of you respect your elders no matter what, because they are your elders. There's a catalyst to this, and that is that obviously I believe, because of how I was raised, that when you are out in the world, I live in Southern California, so we are filled with assholes. There is still a modicum of respect you need to have to random people out there in the world. You're seeing it a lot more and more of people on many different sides being very disrespectful in many senses. And to me, 99% of the time, it is very well earned when they get called out on their BS. You see these videos of these people just spouting racist stuff to random people in, grocery stores, and then acting like they're the one being offended. In the same boat, you have people attacking people for wearing a hat in public that wasn't doing anything more than wearing a hat. It seems like respect is this weird, like, becoming this weird crisscross street when it should be a very simple two-way street. We should have a very basic modicum of respect for everyone, for strangers and those out there. But there are also those who don't deserve respect in my book. Now, respect is something that we are taught to just blindly follow in some cases. And in a lot of those cases, I am very lucky. With my upbringing, I was never forced to respect anybody. My parents were very obvious that if someone has hurt you or wronged you, you should be the better person in the argument, but you also shouldn't take anything lying down. If someone has hurt you or belittled you, but they do hold some portion of power over you, whether it be, a boss, a family member, a friend, something along those lines. Some things you can very easily cut out of your life and get rid of. Others, not so much. And the thing is, I've seen this happen with friends of mine. I've seen this happen with other family members of mine, with their families. Because I have I guess now I would say I have a pretty big family. We're all branching out finally. But we've heard horror stories. I've heard things. And, you're always told, like, hey, don't say that. They're a good comment. One of the comment people wrote was, it's like, they're your mother, they're your father, they're my mother. You show them respect. Now, were you being disrespectful or were they being disrespectful? I've seen it many ways. I will use myself as another example of a real life experience I had. There was a very small amount of time where I had a girlfriend, and she happened to be African American, and I had brought her home. She was a friend of mine, so it was no big shocker to her. But I tried to warn her that at the time, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and my parents, they were home, but I believe they were in other rooms or something, so they missed this altercation. But I remember being like, hey, we need to just go up to my room. We need to, like, not... I wasn't out to my parents, by the way, so they just thought it was a friend. But it was one of those instances where it's like, hey, I don't want my grandma to embarrass me or say something. We should go. And my grandmother then, my girlfriend was very sweet, and she was like, oh, it's no big deal. I want to meet her. I've only ever heard stories and da. And the first words out of my grandmother's mouth were, when I was a child, I had colored maids, which was something I knew nothing about. I was never told about. And oh my God, was I mortified and ashamed. And my poor girlfriend just kind of nervously laughed and was like, oh, and then my grandma proceeded to go on saying more racist stuff about how my girlfriend would have been much, much, much more beautiful if she wasn't so dark. And I remember just standing there, so ashamed, so I was insulted for her. She was very clearly uncomfortable. We went upstairs and kind of talked about it. That's not why we broke up. But it was one of those things where I was just so ashamed, so mortified, and I had talked to my mother about it later on that day, and my mother told me stories about how it's like, oh, well, that's just how some old people are, they're just like that. And I'm like, I don't believe that. Now, my parents never made me respect my grandmother in that sense. I never disrespected her until I learned a lot about her, but she's no longer with us, and I'm not very comfortable disrespecting the dead, just how I am. But disrespecting the dead has nothing to do with stating facts that did happen. There's a big difference there, I believe, as well. There's disrespecting the dead, and then there's lying about true events that have happened. There's a big difference there, and I don't think we should blur those lines. If someone has wronged you in the past, because I have had quite a few people wrong me, I do believe in forgiveness, but I also believe in not forgetting it happened. There's no reason to hold on to that hate so much, but it's better to let go when you eventually can, and it is hard. But forgiving is not forgetting, and you need to make sure that you don't forget it. And sometimes there are people in your lives that you have to remind them that you're not going to forget it. A really good example of just showing respect was about a year ago at the time of recording this. My husband and I had an incident happen with some family members that I'm not going to get into, but they try to constantly pretend that incident did not happen, and it was a very, very serious incident. If you are a longtime subscriber, you know what I'm talking about. And they constantly tend to think that it was for our own good, and that they did not do these things to us. And we do not hold resentment for it anymore, but we are not letting them forget that it happened. We are not letting them swipe it under the rug, pretend it didn't exist, and respect them as we once did, because that respect is gone, and it will be gone for a long time until it is earned back. That is something I see a lot. There are many cases where I have seen from friends and relationships where their partners or family members demand respect. And most of the people I have noticed who demand respect are ones that do not deserve it. Respect should be something that is self-explanatory. It's the same thing with genuine acts of kindness. If you want to do a genuine act of kindness, you should do it because you want to do that act. The same thing goes along those lines. I had also heard stories of, people who are like, oh, just blah, 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 you need to do this. And in the same boat, I've also seen people openly disrespect elderly people for no reason, for it not being warranted. Another big issue is there is a difference between being naive and ignorant and being ignorant and bigoted, if you understand what I'm saying. Blissfully ignorant, and then there's a big difference there. If you see things like that, and then there are people who pass it off as, oh, they're just old, let it be, there needs to be a cutting line of where that lies. A really good example is I had a friend in high school who They came out as gay, and their family very much did not support it. And they were openly told, I know, because when they would have older family members come over and other family members, they would come to my house because they were told, hey, don't mention any of this homo shit to your relatives. Nah. And if they would try to say anything back to the relatives that were older, their parents would get angry and be like, no, you respect them. They are your elders. Even though they were saying some very hurtful, ignorant shit. And that is not right. And in that sense, no, you shouldn't have to respect them. But we don't live in a perfect society, you know? There are many times where you are going to want to say something, but you need to think about the consequences before your actions. There are many people I know personally that they thought one thing would happen and then another completely happened. I had another really good friend of mine drop a pretty big bombshell on their family member, on their family, and their father beat them for it, which had never happened before, and nothing had happened from the event besides a divorce because said friend's parent was in the legal system. So it just was one of those things that was gone. But now, when I have talked to that friend again, their father wonders why they no longer have a relationship with them and wonders why they do not respect them. And it is one of those things where you have to think, well, you really don't understand, do you? And that's because we live in a society and we live in a mind stream, and that's not the right word. We live in a mindset. Let's live in a mind stream. That's what I call it now. But we live in a mindset where we need to respect our elders no matter what. We need to do this. We need to respect our family members. We need to do this even when they are very blatantly wrong. Another very good example is I have had family members who are very, very unhealthy people try to give me health advice. And it's really hard to take it to heart when, if you guys don't know, hi, my name is Michie, and I am trying to do better for myself and my weight and be at a healthy diet, which is very hard with where I live, but I am doing my best, and it is slowly getting results, so I am very happy about that. But when you have people who you don't respect because of the actions they have done or the mistakes they have made, when they give advice, you just kind of roll your eyes and you just nod, or you're polite about it, but you don't take it to heart. And it could be very good advice, but it's the fact that their reputation is tainted in your mind, and the fact that it's very hypocritical for someone so unhealthy to try to give these advice when there's no results showing it. There are only effects showing these results, and yet no changes to these realizations. If you understand what I'm saying. I'm being vague because I don't want to out specific people, but that's just how it is. I see it all the time as well with my husband's family, where we see people try to give us advice that we don't know it, and then when we say something along the lines of oh no, we know, we understand, they act as if we slapped them in the face, and then they act like we are being disrespectful, but they are not respecting us in our mindsets that we can do our own research and have our own personalities as adults. I am. There's also a big difference here. And this is where people are going to get a little irritated. Okay? I am currently, at the time of recording this, I'm 26 years old. I am turning 27. And when I was a young teenager, I thought I knew so much about the world. Now as an adult, I realize I didn't know anything. You can think a lot of things, you can see a lot of things, you can do a lot of research on a lot of things, but until you've had the life experiences and the challenges that go alongside it, I'm not saying people should have as hectic as a life as I had, but you're not going to understand true experiences until you have them, and you're not going to understand a lot of things like that. So, obviously, when an adult in your life is trying to give you money advice, as a kid, you are normally inherently going to respect them and take that advice. But once you're an adult, if you start noticing things you probably didn't notice as a kid, you start realizing that advice is kind of crock, and why should you respect that person in the first place? Another really good drastic example is something that happened to a friend of mine, and I will name this friend Cup. Classic Michelle fashion of finding random stuff on her desk and naming. So Cup belonged to a very deadbeat single father family, and Cup had a younger sibling we're going to name Lyd. So Lyd was very young and had just turned 18. And Lyd had a really good job and was making good money and was very excited to live on their own. And they, everything in their thing, sorry for that noise, that is my chinchilla, the joys of doing audio in your apartment. But Lyd went to go apply for, the ability to be able to rent an apartment. Oh, I bumped the mic there, sorry about that. And Lyd was denied everywhere because Lyd, even though Lyd had just turned 18, miraculously had a foreclosure on a house in their name. They tried to fight it, they tried to do it, and then they found out that their father had put a house in Lyd's name, let the house foreclose, which was one of the many houses they grew up in as a kid and that they lost and they had to move to another house. And the father just never paid it because it wasn't his to pay. It was Lyd's. And Lyd was very rightly upset and very, very angry. And from what I was told, Lyd was told by their family, well, that is your father. You do not disrespect your father. He did keep a roof over your head. But did he, though? From what I heard from these stories, he put both Lyd and Cup into terrible financial ruin before they were even legal. Still does so with other family members if their father got their information. Somehow is not in jail. I don't know how, but somehow is. The court system, for some stupid reason, won't change the things and won't be like, well, that's weird that an 18-year-old somehow has a house foreclosure on them from about 7 or 8 years ago. But we're not gonna look into that. No, it's in your name. That's just how it works. And it's a sad thing that's how a lot of things tend to happen with people like that. And Cup and Lyd, surprisingly enough, still have a relationship with their father, and we all think it's fascinating, but they openly admit that they do not respect their father. They care about him as their father, and that is it. But they do not take his advice, and they do not let him in on any parts that are important in their lives. To the point that when Lyd got married, Lyd did not tell their father, and it became a very big thing in my friend group because Cup was very insulted that they didn't insult their father because Cup felt that Lyd needed to respect them as their father. And Lyd was like, no. Lyd explained, from what I heard, I wasn't invited to the wedding, it was a very small wedding, but from what I heard, Lyd had explained, I'm not going to invite the person that made it so I cannot get a house for at least 7 to 8 years to my wedding. He did not deserve that. And there are many cases where you do not deserve that, but the sad thing is there's not much you can do until you are out on your own. You are out of that situation and you are in the ability and the luxury to escape it. Trust me, I have been a part of those where there have been instances where there were people I did not want to interact with, but I had no choice because I was not on my own. I was not financially stable. I was not in the ability to cut those people out of my life like I can now. And all you can do is in those instances is remember that this is something that my father once told me, and it was very, very good advice. Now, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I don't remember the exact saying, but it was something along the lines of, a parent will never see their child as anything more than a child. And my dad was telling me this because at the time, and I'll be quick, I had another friend of mine, we'll call them Straw, because, we're just going with this whole drink metaphor here. Straw was living with their partner's family while they were both going to school and working, and they were paying rent and doing the whole shebang. And Straw's partners, we'll just call them Drink. So it's just, we're going with the full circle here. Drink's parents were very, very mentally unstable, and Straw was actually taking psychology classes and wanted to be a therapist and did a lot of things in there. And when Straw tried to help, because they would ask advice and give advice, the parents wouldn't hear it. They wouldn't hear it. They would nod and blah, blah. And then when they went to a finger quote real shrink, and the shrink ended up telling the family exactly the same things that Straw did, they instead thanked the shrink instead of thanking Straw. And when I told my dad this incident, my dad told me that saying, and he told me, I love you very much. I respect many things about your opinions. But if you were to give me advice, it's very hard for me to take it as a rational adult because you are my child. And that is something that always stuck with me. People try to debate me that it's wrong. And yes, there are a few people out there who will take their kids' advice, who will treat them as an equal. But the actual number is much, much, much smaller than the number of parents that just, smile and nod. And so, best thing I can do for advice that I've learned to do when you can't get out of the situation is just smile and nod and internalize it. I know it is terrible. I know it is bad. But think of it as a case of someday you'll be free of it, and that's the best way to get through it. So, closing my paper ASMR. I really hope that wasn't that loud. My pets just freaked out. If I destroyed your ears, I am very sorry. I suck at editing audio. Hopefully it doesn't end that bad. But my social medias and all my information is in my Linktree link in my bio down below, as long as my other channels. And I say channels. I have a channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you next week. And bye.